Hi, I'm James Marcelle, and this is Caroline Higgs, and we're here today with Phil Barber, and we're going to be talking to him about his book, Fatherless, and about his life. So I'll get right into the first question.
So what was the most difficult part for you when you wrote the book?
Okay. Whenever you undertake something like this, where you're trying to portray your life, or any kind of piece of work, on the page, or whether it's on screen, or in any kind of artwork, the most difficult part is being able to communicate exactly what you were feeling, what you were thinking at the time, and then have it make sense to the reader. So this is why I think it was 2 years to write the book and then 3 years to edit it. So it's continually going over it and over it and over it again to edit it so it makes sense to a first-time reader. Like if you were to watch a film, if you come away confused, even if it was a good story, so if you're coming away confused, then the editor hasn't done their job. So the most difficult part is to say, yeah, this sentence is exactly right, in all its commas and all its length and its adjectives and its active verbs and its nouns and so forth, and that's exactly how I felt. And one of the most difficult parts is to you understand the rule, or you've probably heard the rule, less is more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very difficult when you're writing a book and you want to write, no, I want to write this and this bit's got to go this bit, and what you can end up doing is writing too much and you lose the immediacy.
Did you have to reduce the book size then?
Yeah, lots of it.
Dramatically?
I wouldn't say reduce the whole size, but editing is so important. There's that famous.
Getting rid of the bits you find that you don't really need in order to explain your story.
Yeah, and it's not that. It's maybe rearranging a sentence. There's that old famous quote from Oscar Wilde,
Right. Okay.
who said, "I spent the whole morning putting a comma in a sentence, and then I spent the whole afternoon taking it out again."
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's that level of editing.
So I can imagine you would have taken stuff out that you thought wasn't worth being in the book, but is there anything you took out because you thought it was too difficult to write about, too personal to write about, that you didn't want to share with people?
Well, those were the scenes that had to go in.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
You put some things in, I'm thinking, I don't think I'd be brave enough to have put that in the book. But you did, which
Yes.
was quite impressive.
Yep.
I haven't read it all, but I've read a lot of the book, and I found it quite moving. And even though I don't have the same story as you, I think anyone can relate to it in their own way, which is a sign of somebody that's a good writer. To be able to capture people's imaginations and their feelings in something, because lots of books they can't, can they?
Yeah.
So.
I've read many books. And I've read books of people who've had similar experiences to me. And you can tell it's just it's not good writing. And as much as you want to read it because the story's great and you want to read it, it becomes hard work. And if it becomes hard work, people just give up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got one book in particular, I tried my best to read it and I had to keep skipping pages and I gave up in the end. And the guy had a great story. So we have to understand we're creating something here. We're creating a piece of artwork. And we must do the work behind the scenes before it gets to the finished article, before we say, here's the book, will you pay this money for it? Just like if you're doing a play, you ask them to come in, if somebody's paying good money, they have expected you to be working on that behind the scenes, not your first attempt at it,
No, that's true.
So the most difficult thing is what to put in, how to describe things, getting the right sentence that matches the experience. And when that happens, and sometimes it can come in the middle of the night or it can come in a dream. 4 o'clock in the morning, I've got loads of pieces of paper by my bed and I'm scribbling down little bits of things in the morning. 90% of it's complete rubbish. And then there's just one line or one sentence or one word. That's it. I've got to run to the computer then, get that in its right place, Yeah. I'd be in meetings, or maybe I'd be coaching somebody, or I'd be driving the motorway, or I'd be in the shower or in the bath, and it comes to you and
Please don't tell me you went writing anything down the motorway.
No, not on the motorway. No, I've got a little voice recorder,
Yeah.
and I keep it there. It's purely for that reason, as I say. And then I just record it and then put it down. It's very quick, easy to use, And as I say, 70, 80%, 90% maybe of the stuff on there it's not, but you've got to keep doing it to capture those one little things.
So what does literary success look like to you then?
You know, people say, oh, wouldn't you like to be a #1 bestseller? Yeah, of course I would love that, but that's not the #1 thing. If I'd have written, and you see them on the bookshelves, a lot of misery memoirs. It's like, how bad can you write? How bad can you say my childhood? It's like a competition for how bad it was, you know. And it's like, so, and then somebody says, well, I can top that because, you know, this, and it becomes a little bit comical then. And they call that genre of writing misery memoirs. Didn't want to write a misery memoir. I wanted to write a piece of social history, and I wanted it to be as close to the bone as my experiences as possible, and as a piece of artwork, so that people could really relate to it. And say, yeah, I've had similar experiences to this. Different settings, different, you know, everybody's had arguments with their father, with their mother, with people that they've met, with teachers, with, you know, who've neglected them or abused them in some ways, you know.
So I know you touched on it briefly, but I'd like to go a bit more in depth in it.
Yeah.
How has writing this book helped you with your ongoing healing process, or has it done more damage by rehashing all of these memories?
Or reliving.
So this is a great question, and this is what everybody will want to ask, you know, because there's a thought process out there is that don't rake up the past. It's all in the past. Don't rake it all up. You're just going to upset people, you know, and people that make movies and write books about the past. And I can understand why people say that. But if we don't do that, or if somebody doesn't do that, with a brush that's got love and skill in it, by the way, not just doing it for the sake of raking it up. If we don't, then we're doomed to repeat it. You know that, and that you see that on all the war memorials from the First World War. The 3 words, lest we forget. So important, lest we forget. If we do not learn the lessons from history, we will repeat them.
Which, unfortunately,
unconsciously,
in bigger sense of the word, we do throughout history. Keep repeating the same mistakes, don't we? Mankind in general.
That's right. And personally as well, we will repeat those.
Because that's what they say, learned behaviour. So that's when, I suppose, almost an excuse for people's behaviour now is because, oh, they had a really bad childhood, therefore that's why they're behaving like this, so you've got to make allowance. Do you think that's become more like that now than it was before? Well,
the first thing is, we cannot use our childhood as an excuse. We can use it as an explanation for the way you've been behaving, but then you must take responsibility. If somebody isn't taking responsibility and say, oh, well, it's just because of my upbringing, and so that's not taking responsibility, quite clearly, isn't it? And what in actual fact you're doing is you're being a victim of it.
And I think people do, you hit the nail on the head there, people do victimise themselves in order to excuse their actions, don't they? And society backs it up, unfortunately, by going, oh yeah, you must let the children do X, Y and Z. So getting that balance, and like you said, learning from your experiences, understanding why you are the person you are, how it's defined you, but then trying to use that in a positive way with your future, which is what you've done.
So we can't change what we're not aware of. It's kind of as simple as that, really. So we have to go back and find out what was happening at the time. What was the soup of the communities that we were swimming in? You know, I mean, what school was like for most people, what it was like in most people's homes. You know, I mean, I always thought it'd be great to have a mum and dad and live in a 3-bedroom semi with a sister and so forth. You know, and then I've met some of those friends, and I'm thinking, I'm glad I wasn't. You know? So, and that was a revelation for me, because I used to look at that and I think that was dream world. That was.
But then sometimes can't you take things for granted when even if you are in a decent situation, a decent family home with good parents,
definitely,
you can take that for granted, and you can still have that poor little me thing for something else, couldn't you? What I'm trying to say, I suppose, in a roundabout way is. People deal with problems differently. You can have exactly the same problem, but how you deal with it might be totally different from somebody else. It's like different people's perspectives. So we can look and read your book and think, yeah, you had it rough, and yet you've come out of that. And somebody else may have had it rough in a different way, lesser or greater so, but to them it may be even greater because of their own perspective. Would you agree with that?
Well, the first thing is everything that's happened to us, we have to love it. That's the first thing. We have to not only be aware of it, but we have to apply love to it. And then when we do that, we start going on a healing process. And it's for everybody to do this. So if we don't go on a healing process, then we just repeat the past, or we become victims of it. So when we use the word healing, we're talking about the word whole, health, wholesome, holy, All of these words come from the same thing. It means healing. Healing the emotional wound. Healing the physical wound. Healing the psychic wound, the wound in the soul. And when we do that, we become useful to everybody else. You probably had the situation where some conflict has arisen. Somebody comes in, I'll come and help this sort it out, and they make it worse. Kind of make it worse, you know. They'll go into a war zone. They say, "Oh, okay, well, it might be a politician or a military person," and they're going, "Yeah, we'll sort all this out." And because they have not healed their own life, they go in there and make the thing worse. Now they're adding their own conflict to the conflict that's already there. Not a very good situation. So the journey is a very personal healing journey. Very personal healing journey. And then you will get the gold in the experience. Every single experience, no matter how bad, even if it's rape, even if it's murder, even if it's, you can think of the most horrendous crimes. When you go back and you relive it and get the gold out of it, okay, there's always gold in there, every single time. So the idea is we don't repeat it and repeat it on people, and usually we repeat it on people that we love as well, people around us that we love, unconsciously.
Yeah. Have you had the opportunity or even the desire to confront some of the people in your past and how they treated you?
All of them.
Really?
Every single one. So if they were still alive, I went back to visit them.
Yeah.
If they weren't alive, I went back to people who knew them and talked about them. So I still know people that were in the homes with me. I'm actually in touch with 2 of the house mothers that were in Spennels, one of the children's homes. One lives in Bristol. We talk on the phone every couple of weeks, every 3 weeks. I was difficult at first,
I bet.
and so go back. I actually took my children back to see matron Mrs. Vaughan, and I could see now with adult eyes what she was like. And then I went to visit her son and so forth. She gave me lots of photographs, and so when you do that, you have the adult perspective on the child's experience. Yep. So I went back to Bernardo to get my records. I've been back to Yorkshire, to all the places where these things happen. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of research. And then reading books about that other people have written about these experiences. So there's a lot goes on behind the scenes before you even start to write a word.